Welcome to my channel, welcome to my show. This is Sahu at your service. We will be discussing something very straightforward with no opaqueness or lack of transparency. It's so obvious, I can't tell you. A seventh grader should have got it, or even less, maybe a sixth or a fifth grader. It's so straightforward. Before I start that, I'm talking about the Sermon on the Mount and how Jesus ends it. This was his first major address as the Messiah of mankind. So it's of highest importance. We know Sermon on Mount is exemplary teaching. Even non-Christians across the world have really got impressed and affected and influenced, and they hold it with great awe and admiration. And by the way, the Jews had waited thousands of years for the Messiah to speak, and here he is. I want you to conjecture the image, like imagine the Lord from the mountain, addressing hundreds of thousands of people who had gathered, including thousands of people who were up the mountains and on the plains, because Matthew 8, immediately after the Sermon on the Mount, tells us thousands followed him down from the mountaintop. So this is for everybody, and it needs to be understood what the Lord spoke there, especially how he ended and summarized with a stiff warning. Guys, I'll be reading the last part of the Sermon on the Mount. It starts from Matthew 7:15 to 29. Please pay a lot of attention here, because why was all this missed? I do not understand. It just defeats my intelligence. That why couldn't grown up people, scholars, Christians, theologians, how did they miss this? Like I said, he's talking after thousands of years of wait for poor Jews, and we are looking back. We have that advantage. They were looking forward, and here he is now. We are looking back, they're looking forward, and this is what he spoke. And when Jesus speaks, it's gold. It cannot be changed, cannot be removed, obliterated, nothing. It will happen word for word. So please pay attention. After he has delivered his Sermon on the Mount, which has become a legend, even now, 2000 years later, people like Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi of India, not a single morning went until he started his day with Sermon on the Mount. So he could get energy to fight the oppression, the brutal oppression of the Britishers who were ruling India. This was where he was drawing his power, strength, and inspiration from. But he's not the only one. Millions across the world do, maybe billions. So you hear what the Lord says as he concludes his Sermon on the Mount. He starts with a warning, and that is the title of the video, how he gave us a heads up about the coming of the Antichrist, or the false apostle, the false prophet. 7:15 onwards, Matthew, I'll read out. Watch out for false prophets, says Jesus. They come to you in sheep's clothing. Reminiscent of Paul, huh? Who was from the clan of Benjamin, wolf. But inwardly they are ferocious wolves. There you go, first hint. He came from the clan of Benjamin. Who? Mr. Paul, Saul of Tarsus. But inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize fruit. Jesus is talking about Paul, the murderer, blasphemer, the battery which could never bear good fruit. He taught a brand new doctrine, his own, that you have been saved by grace through faith and not by works or obedience, lest no man may boast. Now, grace is a word Jesus never uttered in the whole Bible. Never. That's why he's saying, because he knows it. He knows from beginning to the end, from Genesis to Revelation and beyond. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He knew he will say these things. So he's telling you a good tree cannot bear bad fruit. That's Jesus. That I will tell you nothing wrong. And the bad tree, Paul, cannot bear good fruit. And he also says, such people I will condemn them. This is a condemned man, Pharisee. In Matthew 23, he had condemned all those Pharisees who were heckling him throughout his ministry. So thus he says, by their fruit, doctrine, and what they do. Didn't Paul say the evil I do in Romans? By their fruit you will recognize them. But we will talk about the misleading or heretical doctrine of saved by grace through faith. Jesus never taught grace, never used it on the day of judgment. We have all the things we needed to understand. Jesus provided everything. Why did we reject him? I have no clue. Let's go forward. 21, verse 721. He's handing out a stiff warning so that we do not, his warning is not to intimidate us, but to give us a heads up. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only those who do the will of my Father who is in heaven. He's giving us a clear signal here. It's a heads up / warning, caution, name the word you like. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord. It's like not all Christians will enter the kingdom of heaven. He's talking now opposite of Paul. All you do is believe. That's what he taught us. You're not, sirs. You're saved by grace through faith. He's not talking at all about that. But he's talking about those who will do the will of God. Its obedience will be saved. Nobody else. So I'll repeat, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father. Only those will enter. You have to be in sync. And how do you remain in sync with the will? By obeying what the Father and Son taught. I'll tell you how to obey the entire law and teachings of prophets, including Jesus. He gave everything. Jesus is such a wonderful, stupendous, colossal teacher. We are blessed to have him. Because he gave everything, he left nothing to chance imagination or speculation. He gave it all, both spiritually, emotionally, intelligently, and physically. He gave it all. Many will come to me on that day and say, Lord, Lord. This is talking of the judgment day. And this happened. So pause this for a minute after you hear this and go and check out Matthew 25:31-46. It gives the judgment day scenario. This is what happened there. We have a vivid judgment day scenario where only works were used. Also, you can use Revelation 20:11-15. Same thing, only actions, works were used. No grace, no faith. That's why he's saying, listen. And it's such a close match, the final day, and here he's predicting it. Many will come to me on that day. Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name did we not drive out demons, perform many miracles? Then Jesus says, I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you doers of evil, or lawlessness is the original word. I'm reading NIV, I think. Away from me, you doers of lawlessness. Who killed the law of God, by the way? Who destroyed it or demolished it or completely abolished it? Ephesians 2:15, who says? Paul says. What did he say? Law is gone, abolished. He called it even a curse. He kept on saying, you're not under law, you're under grace. Grace is a word Jesus never used. And neither will he use on the day of judgment, saved by faith. Nobody can be saved. James says that in 2:20 all the way to 2:26. Please read that. He blasts, he really attacks and demolishes Paul's heresies that you've been saved. He says, saved Faith without good works is a dead faith. And that's what he was serving. Who? Paul. Paul's job was to condemn us or lead us to condemnation. He's the perfect Antichrist. Whatever Jesus taught, he was teaching the opposite. Question is not that I put almost 500 videos now on all these things. Please check some of them. Everything is free here. So you will realize this man is the Antichrist. There is a video, Antichrist name revealed. It was Paul. Check that, or the damning confessions of the false apostle Paul. The links you'll find in the description section. Take some time out. This due diligence was done over years and years. It cost me a lot of blood and tears, and you can say sleepless nights, until I was standing on a firm ground where in any prudent court of law, if there is a neutral judge and jury, in about 10 to 12 minutes, I can fold up the argument that Paul was a false apostle per the word, like this. There is so much evidence that I think in 10 to 12 minutes, the case of the Paulians who back Paul will be tossed out of the window by the judge, that you don't stand a prayer that Paul is a legit apostle. So much evidence I've gathered. Take some time out to read. But this itself is a very powerful evidence. Jesus says, away from me, you evildoers, or the doers of lawlessness. Paul wanted us to be lawless, like he was. And that's why he argued against the law. While David, Jesus, and all the prophets, Father God himself, it's his heart. Who can dare touch Father God's eternal law? Even Jesus cannot do anything about it, and he didn't want to. Father and Son are one. It was his own law. He says the universe can crash, burn, and disappear, but not a tittle or a jot, like no commas or not even T, the cross of the T. Nothing of the law can be touched. He says that Matthew 5:17, 18, and Matthew 4:4. He says, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And now listen, guys, with that we will close. Now he's going to dish out a stern warning. After saying, away from me, you doers of lawlessness, now he's concluding Sermon on the Mount with these words. Pay attention, please. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. What he's saying is, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and obeys them. It's all about obedience. It has to be about obedience, guys. That's what he's saying. Now, can any pastor, teacher, scholar say that no, he just wanted to tell us to be saved by faith? No, he's talking the opposite. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, we have heard it, and puts them into practice, obeys them, is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat down against that house, yet it did not fall. Why? Because it had its foundation on the rock. Rock of who? Jesus Christ. His words, his teachings, they're like a rock. If you're going to abide in them, you cannot fall. Devil will attack you. Father and the Son will test you. You will be attacked from both sides. I know. One tests Father and Son to know. He says, I search all souls or hearts of people. So we are tested from one side, attacked from the other. In between, this is the remedy. Nothing will happen if you live in obedience. And I'll tell you how to obey everything. Jesus taught that. And then he hands out a tougher warning. But everyone who hears these words of mine, Sermon on the Mount, and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the stream rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. He's talking about us people, that you will be condemned if you don't obey. You'll be gone. And that's what happened in Matthew 25:31, 46. I'm connecting the dots for you guys. And read Revelation 20, 11, 15. After you read Matthew 25:31, 46, both these places, there's a vivid description of what will happen, or the scenario of Judgment Day. When Jesus had finished saying these words, the crowds were amazed. Everybody's amazed when we read Sermon on the Mount, because he taught as one who had authority and not as the teachers of the law, like Pharisees, Paul, the Pharisees. Guys, I hope you got the message. Jesus is pointing clearly at Paul. Don't do what he's saying. He calls them false prophets will come. They are wolves from the tribe of Benjamin in sheep's clothes who claimed, this man claimed through a vision that he was confronted by Jesus. He has no witness of the vision where he so called changed this murderer, blasphemer. Nobody came forward to put their names. Yeah, we saw it. There was just a gang of murderers. Let me put this phone. Devil will always interfere, no, guys, when I'm teaching. My apologies. Should have turned it off. Losing the track completely now because of this devilish, diabolical, uh, it's like distraction, disturbance. J- I'll take you to the finale. What Jesus taught will come true. It cannot be challenged. It will not be challenged. What he taught was used on the day of judgment. What did he teach? Here is the major point here, because many of you will think, how I can't keep the law, it's impossible. And if I keep 1 to 100 laws and then stumble at one, as James says, we'll be held guilty of them all, then how can we keep? That's why he says, I've not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. This is the opposite of what uh, Paul says in Ephesians 2:15. He abolished the law, completely abolished. Jesus says the opposite. I'm not. That's why this guy is the Antichrist. Paul. Jesus says, I've not come to abolish, but to fulfill it. Fulfill. You know how he fulfilled? He taught us. I'll tell you. And that is how you can keep the entire law and the teachings of the prophets. Keep this video somewhere. Once in a while, go through it. Nobody can challenge what I'm saying because I'm directly quoting Christ. Christ said, when he was asked, Matthew 22:37-40, which are the greatest commandments, Jesus? He says, love God with all your heart, might, and soul. Matthew 22:37. That's from Deuteronomy. And then he says from Leviticus, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says something extremely important. The entire law and the teachings of the prophet hang on this. That's the essence of law is this. What is the essence then? These are words of Jesus. And he used that on the day of judgment. Matthew 25:31-46. The third time I'm telling you, goats and sheep. Vision. It's not a parable. You have to understand what's a parable, what is a direct vision is giving of things to happen. That's one of them. It's a vision. And then Revelation 20:11-15. So all things are fulfilled. All the law. In what? Practicing loving kindness, even with strangers. Love God, love others. Love God, love others. And how do you do that? By becoming a good Samaritan. Is that what Jesus wanted to see on the last day? Yes, that is it. Does anybody teach in any church? No. They rely heavily on one man, Paul, who's an unverified apostle. Nobody called him an apostle, neither Jesus. Jesus didn't even utter the word Paul, like he didn't utter the word grace. Did you know? None of the handpicked 12 of Jesus ever addressed Paul as an apostle. Then how did he become? By his own drumming, I, Apostle Paul. Then I can also say, I had a vision last night. Jesus gave me Raj. Now you're the new apostle. Do this, do this, do that, do that. We are relying on one man, a murderer's testimony about himself. Isn't all this really crazy? This is ludicrous. It is audacious. I don't know how did this happen. It's time for a we desperately need a correction here. Hence these videos. So you have a proof once. Let me give you another one. Did Jesus repeat that? That love God and love others? Yes, he did. Matthew 7:12. Let me read out New King James, but from my memory. But you guys check out. What does it say? He says, do what is called the golden law. Do to others as you would want them to do to you. For This is the law. This is the teachings of the prophets. You fulfill the entire law and the teachings of prophets. That is of Jesus as well. Father, Son, and all the prophets. With this one line, what? Do unto others as you would want them to do to you, what you expect them to do to you. See, I expect people to be respectful and love me. Loving. Who doesn't want to be loved? That love word comes again and again. Don't you want to be loved, guys, and respected by others? Jesus says the solution for this and to fulfill the entire law is go out and love others. Didn't he say that in Matthew 22:37-40? The greatest commandment is love God and then love the neighbor, which is could be any other human being. And this is how you fulfill the entire law and the teachings of the prophets. Now we'll go quickly back to Sermon on the Mount. What did he say? Whoever hears these words and keeps them, that's all that was needed to do. Turn away from sin, turn to righteousness, because the righteous will inherit the land, heaven, nobody else. Matthew 25:31-46, goats and sheep, he calls the good Samaritans righteous. So there is a lot of good things in our Bible which went unheeded, which went untaught, not understood, misunderstood, but mostly ignored. Jesus' words were ignored because of Paul, because there's a direct confrontation and contradiction. Hope you got the message, guys, and I pray blessings on all of you. Till next time, God bless.